that degree, I'd say she went to college just to horse around. She's a great gal. Hopefully we get to meet her sometime soon again. She settles into her teaching career. We had something really special today, so I'm going to take a little time extra to do that. I like to think about being wise in your service to the Lord. And if you want to follow some scripture reading, basically the message today is going to be a scripture reading. It is Ephesians chapter 5. But before that, I just wanted to show you a couple of pictures. You know, I like archaeology. And here's a place in Ephesus that is still there. They uncovered this. And this is what today is equivalent to a strip mall. It was called the Agora. It's a marketplace around Ephesus. And some of the people that Paul wrote this letter to, that we're going to read, actually walked here. So it localized, it makes it real for us to know this is a real place. So can you see people walking up and down there, buying fabric and things? And I'm sure McDonald's hadn't made the same way.
Not yet.
And this is a great place, the Agora. And of course, I think I showed you this is the larger theater in Ephesus. Again, some of the people that Paul wrote to in this book that we're going to read to in a moment actually knew this place quite well. Some of them so well that they may have given their lives there. They had a big riot here. There was a big riot in this place. You see the people in the lower right-hand corner. They've been waiting there for 300 years for the show to begin. No, that's a good idea. And the stands go way up much further than even the picture shows. So I like to feel the pulse and see the complexion, and even in my heart of hearts and in my inner ear, hear the voices of these people, because you know they were not a lot different from us. We know that from history. In fact, they had some things over us. They were not as distracted by CNN and Fox and other things. But they're folks just like us. The teenagers flirted with each other. Housewives talked. They wanted to walk the best bargain they could find. They were sometimes getting their hair done in places like the Agora. And people that converse just like we do, but in the Greek language, in another place and time. The place is not too far from present-day Izmir in Turkey. So with that in mind, I wanted to read to you, I wanted to show you this so we get a sense of the reality of what this is all about. These people were really real people that Paul was writing to. Paul walked into the city of Ephesus, and it never recovered from Paul being there. If you want to get the story, you have to read Acts chapter 17, 18, and 19. Great literature. I think it would be a great movie. I've already cast Tom Selleck as Paul. Only because Linda likes him. Actually, Paul was probably much shorter than Tom Selleck. Paul was a short guy, and he had a problem with his eyes. You know that. He was not always well, but he was in love with Christ. He went into Ephesus, into this city, no doubt walked in that Agora, knew this place quite well, and talked to these people. Many of them came to know Christ. And what ensued was a riot, because the people who were there making little statuettes of the goddess Diana had their livelihood threatened. People quit buying them because they said, why should we do that? We are now worshipers of the Lord Jesus. And great things happened there. Paul had to leave town. But in verse 1 of chapter 5, this is the second time we've heard this today, Paul says, be imitators of God therefore, as dearly loved children. And live a life of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. You notice it says about Jesus that he gave himself up for us. He did not get punched to the ground. He didn't get knocked to the ground. He was not forcibly put on the cross. Jesus willingly laid down himself for us on the cross. He gave himself up for us. I'm sure that was a surprise to the Roman soldiers who were on hands of crucifying people. And they crucified thousands of people. They have found actually in Egypt not too long ago a set of ankle bones with a nail through them. The person that had been crucified like Jesus was. But Jesus gave himself up for us. And so Paul says to these believers who walked in the agora, who went to the theater, be imitators of God, therefore, as dearly loved children. I don't know what kind of relationship you had with your folks, with your parents. I pray that it was good. Most of us have had relationships with our parents that had good days and bad days. Hopefully, mostly good days. Someone said that when he was 21, he was so disappointed at how stupid his father was. But when he got 35, he said, I was so surprised at how much my father had learned in those few years. But Paul says, be imitators of God as dearly loved children. If you're a dearly loved child, it's easy to imitate your parents. You want to. That's why so many kids are smoking. That's why you see a lot of bad behavior, because even bad parents love their kids. And they just imitate them. They imitate their mannerisms, their words, their expressions. I was in Cove City, North Carolina, visiting my dad just before he passed away. And he was kind of frail, but he liked his table set in a certain way. And I noticed before his food came, he was straightening up his forks and knives in just the right way at his table. A few years later, I was sitting at the table and I found myself doing the same thing. And I had this flash. You know, they say you are imitating your parents that one day you push your arm into your coat and your father's hand comes out of the sleeve. Or your mother's. But Paul says we have God and we should be imitators of God. Therefore, as dearly loved children. Paul, are you serious? Am I to imitate God? The word there in the Greek, imitate, is mimetas. It means to mimic. You know what a mime is? Mime is someone who can make all these, you do an expression, they do the same one. My father was preaching at the Fourth Presbyterian Church in Washington, D.C. one time, and he was preaching in his Castilian Spanish. And not a lot of people could interpret that, so he had found somebody who could interpret it. And he had a great interpreter. And you know, if you've ever heard him preach, he's a very dynamic, very eloquent preacher of the word. And this guy who was interpreting him not only interpreted his words, but it interpreted his facial expressions, his mannerisms. And one Carly's going like that, got to look like that. You know, I had kind of a similar experience in Cameroon one time when I was preaching to 800 people in a little place called Fundang in Cameroon. And we got along quite well. He was a good interpreter. But this guy was interpreting Juan Carlos Ortiz, and a little girl came after the service and wanted to know what those guys were fighting about.